Welcome to my channel. Uh, Please like and subscribe. Press the bell icon. The Geostatistics for Beginner is my book. The link for purchase of this book will be available soon. And this is the synopsis of my book. You can go through the synopsis. Now the presentation starts. Good afternoon, everybody. Today's topic, as decided by Geovigyan, is a really very big topic. I'll try to do justice within the allotted time, because introduction to geostatistics itself is a big topic, and then application in mineral exploration and geotechnical engineering is another big topic. Anyway, I have tried to divide my this presentation in two parts. First is the introduction to geostatistics, then second part is the application part. Is it okay for all of you?
Yes, sir.
So I am a life member of Mining Engineers Association of India. My email ID is given on the screen. My website is this is also given. Just I can, whether it can open here, I don't know. No. My YouTube channel is Geostatistics for Beginners. The link for my YouTube channel is provided on left-hand corner of my website. 3 links are provided: LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. I am author of a book recently written by me, and it is available on Amazon. The book is mainly meant for younger generation professionals who are engaged in mineral exploration, mining, and students who are interested in learning the subject of geostatistics. Now, I come to the introduction part. I'll just start with the previous background, how geostatistics started. The study of it started somewhere in early 50s. The study of variability of regionalized variables is called geostatistics. I'll come to what are regionalized variables. In early 50s, Professor Craig, D.G. Craig, a mining engineer working in a gold mine in South Africa, noticed discrepancies between the estimated grades of blocks and true grade obtained after mining. He approached Professor Methron of Center of Geostatistics. He posed this problem to him, that I am facing this problem, kindly help me to solve this problem. So Professor Methron thought that the underlying problem was the correlation existing between the sample values considered for estimation. This correlation had to be quantified as a mathematical function of the distance between the samples. He came out with a theory of spatial correlation. So between the sample values, the theory of regionalized variables, and defined such variables as regionalized variables. Now it is clear that regionalized variables are those which have a spatial correlation. The root cause of the wrong estimation was that the distance between the samples was not being considered for estimation. Geostatistics is an estimation technique. Now, there are many people ask me, what is the difference between conventional statistics and geostatistics? The difference between conventional statistics and geostatistics is that in conventional statistics, one deals with random samples irrespective of their locations in space, while in geostatistics, location of samples in space is considered to study the spatial variability of the variable. And try to capitalize on this knowledge, an estimator called kriging, named after Professor Craig, was developed for estimation of ore reserves and grade. Kriging is also termed as BLUE, BLUE, Best Linear Unbiased Estimator. By this method, estimation error can be quantified, thus giving the prediction accuracy, which is so very important for taking an investment decision before opening of a mine after exploration. Now, I'll be mainly answering three basic questions regarding geostatistics. When to apply geostatistics, what is expected from geostatistics, and how to apply geostatistics. So, when to apply geostatistics? Geostatistics is an interdependent scientific discipline rather than a standalone technique. It has become a tool available to geologists and mining engineers for the purpose of characterizing a mineral deposit. A geostatistical study properly carried is generally expensive. I'll harp on this point. People consider that once we are using computer, it will be cheaper and faster. But that is a wrong conception. I'll tell you why. The geostatistical study properly carried is generally expensive and time consuming, not cheap because of use of computer. Once it is decided to carry out a geostatistical study, its objectives and assumptions must be clearly spelled out. So now, second question, what is expected from geostatistics? So first point, what kind of reserves are to be estimated? There are two types of reserves, in situ geological reserves, other is the recoverable mining reserve. What is the end use of estimated reserve? Second point, ore reserve reporting, feasibility study, production planning and scheduling. What are the relevant geological characteristics of the deposit? Now this is very important point before starting of any geostatistical study. Geological characteristics may vary from deposit to deposit, whether homogeneous, bedded type, vein type or disseminated type. Then secondly, strike, dip, folds, faults, foliations and joint planes etc. are to be studied in detail by the geologist concerned. Fourth point, data considered should be clearly spelled out. First is primary assay data on trace cutoff. I'll here once again impress upon this point. Okay, while considering the data, it should be considered on trace cutoff, not on any economic cutoff. Naturally, how the ore is occurring, that should be considered for primary assay data. Composite zone-wise data along with the associated thickness should be clearly spelled out. Now, fifth point, which is also very important, what are geologists' views on continuation of mineralization? Geologist does the interpretation on the basis of exploration data with the help of geological cross sections along the strike, along the dip, LV section. LV means longitudinal vertical section, and level or slice plans at different levels. On continuation, now he interprets on the basis of this data on continuation of mineralization along the strike and dip. Sixth point, in case of mineable reserves, what type of mining is envisaged? Open cast or underground? Economic cutoff grade to be considered. Now here, for mineable reserves, what type of mining is envisaged? That has to be known earlier, whether it is open cast or underground. Then economic cutoff grade to be considered. Because with the change in cutoff grade, shape of the ore body changes. And on the shape of the ore body, type of mining envisaged, type of mining equipments to be used will depend. So last and very important point, make sure that there is a proper coordination amongst the entire team of project geologists, mining engineer and geostatistician. Because coordination is very important with all the three. Now, how to apply geostatistics? An important fact to remember about geostatistics is that it is an interdependent scientific discipline. It is not independent. It is interdependent scientific discipline than a standalone technique. To state that we want to do some geostat means little until more is known about contemplated step-by-step procedure. Now, steps involved in a geostatistical study. I have tried to jot down step by step. None of the steps should be left behind. First is collect and check data. Error-free data should be ensured before starting the study. Second, discuss with the project geologist to find out type of sampling procedure followed, change in sampling procedure during the exploration campaign and why. Now here I just wanted to tell because some exploration projects run for years, 2 years, 3 years or 4 years. So in between the exploration campaign, the project geologist gets transferred and some other guy joins. So he is not aware what type of sampling procedure the earlier guy was following. He starts following another sampling procedure. So this has to be recorded very properly, documented. Okay, if the change in sampling procedure during the exploration campaign is there, then why it has been done. Different geological zones should be very clear. Preferential sampling of rich zones. If yes, why? Some of the people are inclined in the field itself to sample only rich zones, but that is definitely very wrong procedure. All the samples, irrespective of the higher quality or lower quality, it should be sampled and then database to be created, because sampling of rich zones only will give a very wrong result at the time of mining. What you have estimated, you will not get while mining. Define regions and variables to be studied. Now, very important point comes here is what is the volume support of the variable? Because in geostatistics, there is a very important relationship between variance and volume. By volume, I mean to say, what is the length of the sample considered? All the sample length should be same. That means they have a same volume support. Whether the data is borehole data having point support, channel sample data, pit sample data, or exploratory mining data. All different types of sample data have different volume support. Very important, samples of different volume support should never be combined. I'll emphasize, should never be combined. They should be treated separately. That means, I mean to say is, borehole samples should not be combined with the channel sample or pit sample or exploratory mining data. All should have a different database and treated separately in geostatistics. I'll tell you why in a later slide. As volume support increases, variance decreases. That is, they are inversely proportional. Because I'll explain to you why when the volume increases, why your variance decreases in a later slide. Beware of considering. Now, this is very important. People who are not aware of the strength of geostatistics, they start thinking it is a pure data processing exercise. It is not. Beware of considering a geostatistical study as a pure data processing exercise. It should also be required that the report should include all relevant geological characteristics of the deposit. Data considered should be clearly spelled out, step-by-step description of the procedure. It should be understandable. Now, it is another important point. It should be understandable by mining professionals who are not well versed with geostatistical theory and jargon. This is a very important point because mining professionals are not very well versed with the geostatistical theory. So now this this is a slide. I have put it purposely. In geostatistics, big is not necessarily beautiful. What I mean to say by this is, if you prepare a 1,000-page report and it is a muck inside the 1,000-page report, it is not a beautiful report. What geostatistics report needs is to the point and concise, explaining all the points, and don't make it a big report because this is no sense. This is what I mean to say. In geostatistics, big is not necessarily beautiful. It might be beautiful at some places, but not necessarily. Now, steps involved, I'll go through very fast in this. Collect and check data, discuss with geologists. This I have already covered. Define regions and variables. What is the support of the variable? Now, another point comes, are variables stationary? This is a very important point in geostatistics. Stationarity of variable. By stationarity, I mean to say is, first order stationarity is the mean, second order stationarity is variance, third order is you can say skewness, and fourth order is kurtosis. Now, in this particular lecture, I am sticking to the second order stationary. That means the mean and variance should be constant for a certain distance. That condition should be satisfied for doing any geostatistical study. Basic statistical tests: mean, variance, standard deviation, scatter plot, frequency distribution, histograms, etc. Check for outliers and their locations. Check for non-homogeneous data. Now, by outlier, I mean to say is a value which is anomalous than the other values in the deposit. Suppose a gold deposit, average grade of a deposit is 1 gram per ton, but one value gives you 100 grams per ton. So that value is an anomalous value. So this should be very carefully studied, because if you consider 100 grams per ton within the deposit, the deposit becomes economically viable, and if you exclude it, it becomes economically unviable. So it is very important to consider the outliers and their locations. Then next step is the calculation of experimental variograms, fitting a model, and use of variogram. I'll come. What is a variogram? Parameters SIL, range, and nugget effect. These are the variogram parameters: the SIL, the range, and nugget effect, for further interpolation of the variable. Now, definition of a variogram. Geostatistical methods of ore reserve estimation employ the concept that ore body parameters, that is, variables considered, are especially correlated. Interdependence of samples is measured by the variogram. What variogram does? Interdependence of samples is measured by variogram, which measures the average square difference between the sample values. Now you have, say, a graded sample, a graded area in which grid-wise sampling has been done. So So what is done for calculation of variogram is what we do is the average square difference between the samples, a given distance h apart. The graph of gamma h, that is variance, plotted against h distance. That is, on y-axis you plot the variance, and x-axis you plot the distance. Present the following features. So the function, your graph, what is shown by plotting this, it starts at 0. For h is equal to 0, zx plus h. Now you have to see the difference between the two samples with the distance h. So h is equal to 0, zx plus h will be only zx because h is 0. It generally increases with h. It rises up to a certain level called sill C, then flattens out. Alternatively, it would just go on rising. That means at the point where it flattens, that height on y-axis is the sill value. And on x-axis, that distance is called the range of the variogram. So rate of increase of the variogram with distance indicates how quickly the influence of sample drops off with distance. After the variogram has reached its limiting value, still there is no longer any correlation between the samples. Now here the point comes why I was talking about the or second order stationarity up to a certain distance. That is, mean and variance should be constant up to certain distance. This is the distance which is referred there. There is no longer any correlation between the samples. After the it has reached the limiting value, that is sill. This critical distance is called the range or zone of influence of the variogram. Now, types of variogram models, in particularly in the geology field, that is your estimation of grades and tonnages. A spherical model or at the most exponential model are used. So there are 4 types of variograms: spherical model, exponential model, Gaussian model, and power function model. I'll briefly explain what are the formulae for these in a later slide. Sample data from ore body can often be approximated by a spherical variogram model. The converse function of this model, variogram model, is covariance. The other is the variance. The converse function is covariance, which measures the similarity of sample values and is utilized in the Kriging estimation method. So in Kriging estimation method, the covariance, the converse function is utilized. Now another factor comes, which is very important in variograms, is anisotropies. The anisotropies are depicted by computing the variograms in different directions. If the range of influence along the two directions, along dip and strike, in the horizontal plane differ widely, the ratio of the two ranges is called the anisotropy factor. This type of anisotropy is defined as geometrical anisotropy. Now, other type of anisotropies are also encountered. For instance, if layering of the mineralization exists, then the global variation in any direction can be thought of the sum of two independent sources, one isotropic component plus a zonal component, which depends on the number of layers crossed. The difference between the grades of 2 points depends not only on their relative distance, but also on their difference of elevation in the layered system. So, if this type of anisotropy is called the zonal anisotropy. That means the difference between the grades of 2 points depends not only on their relative distance but also on their difference of elevation in the layered system. Now, just by this, I'm sorry that I couldn't prepare this thing because this is a photograph from this thing. So I just try to explain few important things from here. That is nested structure. This diagram shows the variogram starts from here and there is a kink here and then rises. So this kink is called another structure. So you will have two types of variograms, two types of sills also. Okay, one is this and other is this. Okay. So and presence of drift is also can be seen here. The raw variogram and true underlying variogram. That means E zx plus h minus zx square is equal to variance zx plus h minus zx plus estimation of zx plus h minus zx square. So raw variogram is equal to true variogram plus bias. So now a spherical variogram can be represented by this mathematical equation. Gamma h equal to C 3 by 2 h by a minus half h cube divided by a cube. When h is less than or equal to a, and if it becomes 0, it becomes C when h is greater than a. So this is the equation for spherical variogram, and this is how it is seen once you draw it. So it starts from 0, goes up and flattens here. So where it is flattened, this is called the range of the variogram. And this point where the tangent drawn at the origin on the curve meets the your x-axis. This distance is 2 by 3a. So actually, for all practical purposes, for spherical variogram, this 3 by 2a is considered to be the range of the variogram. And then we come to the exponential variogram. Exponential variogram, this is represented by gamma h equal to C 1 minus exponential h by a. So in this variogram, what you see is this is the tangent, it meets here, and it never reaches on the top. It reaches maximum up to 95% of the variance value. So in this, the where 95% of the maximum value is reached is range equal to 3a. This distance is the 3 times the range, and this distance where the tangent meets is a. That is called the practical range of the exponential variogram. Now Gaussian model, gamma h is equal to C 1 minus exponential minus h square by a square. Range is root 3a. Range is 1.73a. Power function, gamma h is equal to h to the power alpha with alpha that is less than or equal to alpha is less than 2. The linear model gamma h is equal to h is a special case. So this type of variogram has no upper bound, thus corresponding covariance model does not exist. That is why this type of model are not being used in the mining industry. Thus, it is seen that the variogram takes into account all the geological features, and it can be expected that an estimation procedure based on it can be geologically reliable. You can see by anisotropies, you can know what is the strike, and what is the dip. That is, the maximum range is along the strike and the minimum range is along the X, along the dip. So you know, by not being a geologist, you can see the variograms and know that what is the strike of the formation and what is the dip of the formation, which direction. So now, after this variogram are computed, then statistical analysis of ore body data should be done. Geostatistics utilizes probability theory to estimate the error of an estimate. Now, this is a very important issue. It utilizes probability theory to estimate the error of an estimate. So, actually, this subject of geostatistics involves a lot of mathematics, but what I have tried in my book, The Geostatistics for Beginners, I have tried to minimize the mathematical part in this, because most of the geologists, they are afraid of mathematics. So what happens is, mathematical part, whatever is there, whatever the complicated mathematical part, is taken care by the program or computer program. So computer takes care of the mathematical part. So what we should understand is the logic behind which is fed into the computer program. If we are clear about the logic, we can do the geostatistical analysis. There is no need of going deep into the mathematical part, because that part is taken care of by the computer program. So it was therefore necessary to determine whether sample values in the ore body could, when considered as independent variables, be approximated by statistical distribution models. Now, these are all statistical distribution models, that is, spherical model, exponential model, they are all statistical distribution models. Minimum recommended number of boreholes for use of geostatistics is 30 after David 1984, which generates 435 combinations of sample pairs. For each sample pair, the separation distance must be calculated from three-dimensional coordinates and the square of each difference in grade value obtained. Now comes the volume variance relationship, which is very important, as I have told earlier. An important consequence of the volume variance relationship in geostatistics is that samples considered in a population of boreholes must be of the same length if they are to be represented as point values for kriging. Now here I'll just show how the variance changes by change of support. If you have a deposit like here, which has a mean of 2% and only one sample, so what will be the variance of this sample? There is no other sample available from which you have to subtract this. So there is only one sample, so the variance will be 0. Then if you divide the deposit into 4 blocks, which have mean value of 1, 2, 2 and 3, but overall mean remains the same, that is 2%. So what will be the variance become now? Now what we have done is, we have reduced the volume support of the block. Here is the highest volume support, variance is 0. And then, so in this case, your variance increases to 0.5. And if you further divide it into 16 blocks, then variance increases to 1.75. Okay. So now if you see the samples within the deposit, that is all the samples within the deposit. So if you calculate like this, the variance becomes 2.25. That is samples within the deposit, samples within blocks, block within deposit. Okay, the 3 cases. Now you can see very, very interesting situation. Variance are are additive. If you dispersion variance of sample within the block is 1.75, dispersion variance of blocks within deposit is 0.5. So dispersion variance of samples within the deposit is 2.25. That means 1.75 plus 0.5 equal to 2.25. The variances are additive. So histogram and variance are the functions of the volume of the variable support. Skewness of histogram is inversely proportional to the support. That one you must be knowing about the skewness of histogram. The right skewed or left skewed is inversely proportional to the support, and so is the variance or standard deviation. The smaller the support, higher is the variance or standard deviation. Now, another use of geostatistics is optimal sampling grid. You can decide beforehand what should be the optimum sampling grid of a deposit. So I have divided it into two: small region and large region. If grid size is 2000, thickness and ash and variance, so you can see the minimum variance you get at 500 meters grid in this also. And if you don't want the higher prediction accuracy, you can restrict up to 1000 or 707 if you are satisfied with the 6.88% of variance. Here thickness variance is 1.7, for ash it is 2.34, for sulfur it is 6.88, here it is 1.13, 1.54, 4.62. Here what we have to consider, what is the best to be considered for the geostatistical study is variance to be minimum. Your estimation error will be minimum once you consider the variance as minimum. In large region, it is further, that is small region, large region for different grid size. The thickness for thickness variance is 0.6, ash is 0.8, and then sulfur is 2.9. To start with, we should have variograms of all the variables based on previous information. So optimal drilling pattern also depends on the size and to a lesser extent on the shape of the region. To be estimated above all, the shape of the region to be estimated. Above all, the dominant factor determining the estimation variance is the total number of boreholes. Consequently, although a 1000 meter grid might be optimal for a variable for a bigger area, it would not be dense enough for a smaller area. Now, I want to share my other listing. How to share the other file? Hello.
Sir, your screen is seen, so you can open that file in your screen and it will be shown to us.
Okay. Now I come to the application parts. Application of geostatistics in mineral exploration. A case study of geostatistical evaluation of a mineral deposit. Now, I'll just show what I was talking about, the support effect. If you see this table showing effect of different support after compositing of samples. Initially, variance was 51.56. Once it was composited up to for 1 meter, all the samples from sample numbers 2632, increased to 3143 and variance decreased from 51.56 to 43.87. And since this deposit, this is a live data of a deposit, so this deposit had to be mined by open cast method with the 6 meter bench height. So what I did was I composited them for 6 meters with 1 meter bottom to be considered. So the number of samples reduced to 565 and the variance reduced from 43.87 to 35.03. Once you consider 2 meter bottom to be considered along with the 6 meter, then it further reduces up to 34.73. Then finally, our aim is to reduce the estimation error. So what is the estimation variance should be minimum to be considered for further processing. Now, basic statistical test to be carried out to understand the behavior of the variable, mean, variance, standard deviation, scatter plot, frequency distribution, and histograms. So now this is after compositing, this is a histogram which you can see it is rightly skewed. Count of data is 535, minimum is this value, 0 value, maximum is 28.5, mean is you can see 0.654 E plus 0.1, that means 6.54 mean, and the median is this 4.86. The variance is 34.7, that is 0.347 E plus 0.2 sigma upon m, and that is your sigma upon m is 0.9. All these statistical figures are given by the program. Now we try to do condition of second order stationary to be fulfilled, that is mean and variance of the variable should be constant up to a certain distance. Check for outliers and their location. Location of outliers within the deposit is very important because it may affect the economic viability of a deposit. Calculation of experimental variogram. In this, I have tried to draw the experimental variogram in 4 directions. So a maximum range you will find in the strike direction and the minimum range you will find in the horizontal plane. A minimum range you will find along the dip direction. That means this is the strike direction and this is the dip direction. These are 4 directions given here. And the third direction along the vertical, along the hole. So this is the experimental variogram along the hole in vertical direction. Now, model is tried to be fitted. That is, in this particular case, spherical model has been fitted. And you can see there is a, what I was talking about, nested structure. You can see one range up to here. There is a kink here. Then again, it rises like this. So there are 2 structures, 3 structures you can see. Spherical model, and the rotation matrix, etc. There is all given by the program itself. Variable P205, mean is 6.53, variance is 34.73, anisotropy is this thing XYZ. So use of variogram parameters, nugget effect, C0, SIL, C plus C0, and range H for interpolation of the variable using Kriging. Now another why I was talking that it is not cheap and fast, because once you are through up to this, the variogram parameters, then you have to start the Kriging part. So Kriging part takes lot of time depending on the volume of the data available. That is, if the data is very large, say 1000 boreholes, and you have more than 30,000 samples, 50,000 samples, then for kriging, it has to inverse the matrix and calculate the estimation. So inversion of matrix takes a lot of time. Now, once I did my course in 92, 93, I had used a Sun workstation. So for this exercise, we used to feed the data and come next day to get the result. It used to take that much of time. And I have tried for 7 different combinations for kriging, which gives to decide which combination gives me the minimum estimation variance. You can see here, by neighborhood, I mean to say is, while estimation, how many blocks in x-axis, how many blocks in y-axis, and how many blocks in z-axis, you will be considering considering the samples for estimation. So one combination I tried for 3 by 3 by 3, other combination I tried for 5 by 3 by 3, 5 by 5 by 7, 7 5 by 5, 7 5 by 7, 9 5 by 7, 11 5 by 7. So these different combinations I tried to get the minimum estimation variance. So in this case, you can see this neighborhood area of 5.5 by 5 by 7 gave me the minimum estimation variance of 2.94 as compared to other combinations. So that is why you have to do this exercise several times to get the accurate results, to get the minimum estimation variance. Now, this is another very important thing, and this is once you krig a block model, so what you get, the krigged grade and krigged variance blockwise. And one it is a block model. So if you want to mine at 6 meter bench height, so you can slice it at every 6 meters and see what is the krigged grade and what is the krigged variance. Here I am showing slide, just one slice of that krigged grade and krigged variance. That is the krigged grade here. It is showing the krigged grade in the gray scale, and it is showing the krigged variance of the same slice. So what you can find is the krigged grade is estimated to be high in this area, except for this portion, but krigged variance is very low in this area. That means this area, your estimation is more accurate as compared to this other leftover area. There you have to improve your estimation. So this gives very clear picture how to improve your estimation variance. So section-wise krigged grade and krigged variance is depicted in the figure 4 and 5. It can be seen that both are inversely proportional. That is, in blocks where grade is estimated to be higher, krigged variance is lower. In other words, estimation is more reliable. So by using this technique properly, we get a very correct result. But I may caution you, misuse of the technique can lead to disappointment if not damaging results. Now I come to the second application of geostatistics in geotechnical engineering projects. This is a new subject for me. I am trying to attempt to introduce this subject in our country. It is not yet introduced. In mining, it is somewhat introduced, but in geotechnical, it is not at all introduced in our country at least. So I am trying to attempt. So you just see my efforts. So at ground investigation stage, rock mass quality is modeled by using rock mass rating. Rock quality designation, the rock mass rating RMR consists of these 5 different variables. Rock quality designation RQD, fracture frequency FF, uniaxial compressive strength UCS, joint conditions JC, and underground water conditions WC. Geotechnical engineering by its nature demands tools for coping with large uncertainties and variations in material properties. To identify conditions prevailing in rock mass and soil, and if satisfied, could convert geostatistics into a real design aid for geotechnical engineers. Geostatistics deals with regionalized variables, the variables which have spatial correlation. Now I'll come to how these geotechnical parameters are also regionalized variables. Rock mass characteristics are also spatially correlated and hence they are regionalized variables. They have some relationship between location and data. Major task in geotechnical projects is to model rock mass quality by using rock mass rating RMR, which is a major parameter widely used in geotechnical engineering. RMR consists of a weighted sum of ratings assigned to RQD, fracture frequency, uniaxial compressive strength, joint conditions, and underground water conditions. Rock mass properties are summarized using rock mass classification RMC. The most commonly used scheme is rock mass rating RMR. Intact rock is defined as the rock material found between discontinuities. First is the definition of intact rock. What is intact rock? The rock mass comprises of total volume of the rock, including intact rock and discontinuities, and its mechanical behavior can be significantly different. Intact rock properties are density, permeability, rheological behavior. Rheology is the study of the flow of soft solids. Then the fourth is uniaxial compressive strength, UCS. In case of rock mass, it's necessary to characterize its discontinuities. This includes roughness, filling quality, and weathering in the discontinuity walls. Rock quality parameters. Now these are rock quality parameters are given below. That is strength. Strength is determined directly by uniaxial compressive strength UCS, number of joints per cubic meter JV, and RQD. RQD is given by this formula 115 minus 3.3 JV after Palmstrom 1982. Roughness. It is potentially important component of its shear strength. Barton and Chaube 1977. Aperture. It is a perpendicular distance separating the adjacent rock walls of an open discontinuity. The intervening space may be an open discontinuity. It may be open or filled, for example, with clay. This parameter also accounts for condition of joints or discontinuities. Filling material. It is a term for material separating the adjacent rock walls of discontinuity, for example, calcite, chlorite, clay, fault, fault gauge, and breccia. Spacing. It is recorded as a perpendicular distance between its representative members. If great variation is observed, average of spacing indicated by various members of a joint set may be taken. The most common classification of joint spacing is represented by Deary 1964-68. Now we see what is the common joint spacing classification. Orientation. Orientation of a discontinuity in space is described by the dip direction and amount of dip. That is the dip direction and amount of dip. So here it is 315 degrees and dip, amount of dip is 30 degrees. These are calculated by stereographic techniques and computer programs after Huang and Charlesworth, 1989. Groundwater inflow. It has an adverse effect on shear strength of joints. It can be classified completely dry, no inflow, moist only, less than 25 liters per minute per 10 meter length of the tunnel. Water under moderate pressure, 25 to 125 liters per minute per 10 meters of length of tunnel. Severe water problems, that is greater than 125 liters per minute per 10 meters length of tunnel. These are classification of groundwater flow. Persistence. It is the spatial extent or size of a discontinuity within a plane. It is roughly quantified by observing the discontinuity trace length on the face of the outcrop. Very low persistence is less than 1 meter, that is length. Low persistence 1 to 3 meters, medium persistence 3 to 10 meters, high persistence 10 to 20 meters, very high persistence more than 20 meters. Now number of sets of joints. The mechanical behavior of rock mass is mainly controlled by various sets of discontinuities, their geometry and spatial distribution. The number of sets are mainly determined by contouring poles of discontinuities. So it is massive, occasional random joints, one joint set plus random, two joint sets plus random, three joint sets plus random, four or more joint sets, and crust rock, earth-like. That is after Zhang and Tong, 1988. Bevanevsky, 1973, proposed the RMR, rock mass rating, also known as geomechanics classification for jointed rock mass. Bevanevsky, 1976-79, modified it and gave 5 basic parameters which are considered for geomechanics classification. That is your RMR. RQD, strength of rock, spacing of joint discontinuities, condition of joints, groundwater conditions. RMR system largely depends on various joints discontinuity parameters. This is after Chaube and Dhawan. That is Dr. Dhawan, who is running the Dr. Dhawan's Academy of Geologists. Chaube and Dhawan, 1990. A rating is allocated to each parameter, and overall rating for the rock mass is arrived at by adding the rating for each parameter. So now, this is what I have told up till now is what is being done in geotechnical projects by empirical methods or some stereographic nets or some small programs. But now I come to the application of geostatistics in geotechnical engineering projects for estimation of rock mass rating RMR parameters. So first of all, we should be very clear under what conditions this can be applied. This technique can only be applied under certain conditions. There should be special correlation between sample values, that is, they are regionalized variables. All the samples should have the same volume support because of volume variance relationship is very important. Condition of second order stationarity should be satisfied. Mean and variance should be constant for certain distance. That is second order stationarity. The application of geostatistics for estimating RMR parameters in geotechnical engineering projects. Geostatistics was originated to solve problems of estimation using Kriging, also known as best linear unbiased estimator, BLEU. It imposes minimization of estimation variance or estimation error. Geostatistics mainly uses various Kriging methods for estimation of regionalized variables on the basis of structural analysis to evaluate and solve practical problems of estimation. It also has many other important tools such as conditional simulation and indicator Kriging. Correlation coefficient indicator Kriging means we put indicator on the variable, but this will be considered, this will not be considered. That is called indicator. Correlation coefficient, standard deviation, that is square root of variance. The standard deviation is square root of variance. And mean are used to describe the degree of correlation between variables. The main job by utilizing geostatistical technique is to model RMR, rock mass rating, for any geotechnical project. Now, I come to what type of Kriging can be used for which parameter. Block Kriging is used to estimate average values of an indicator or rock hardness and to characterize the distribution of fracture joints to understand the spatial distribution at different scales. So this is one part. Block Kriging can be used for rock hardness, characterize the distribution of fracture and joints to understand the spatial distribution at different scales. Ordinary Kriging. Okay. Ordinary Kriging is utilized to estimate RQD distribution, associating the estimation of standard error as a measure of reliability. Since RMR is not an additive variable, hence correct approach to spatial prediction is to estimate or simulate each of the parameters of RMR. That is, parameters of RMR are RQD, FF, UCS, JC, and WC, as I have already described earlier, which are regionalized variables to assign a rating to the estimated or simulated value of each parameter. Now, next step is to assign a rating of the estimated or simulated value. To obtain the final rating of RMR, sum of all the ratings is obtained. When the variable has a log normal distribution, logarithmic Kriging method can be used. Random Kriging can be used when the data is less, distribution is not large, and prediction accuracy is not required to be high. When you have a limitation of less data, distribution is not large, and prediction accuracy is not required to be high. That is your initial stage. Factor Kriging and indicator Kriging can also be utilized for estimation. Now, I have given different geostatistical techniques which can be utilized for different variables. The prime reasons for geostatistics not being utilized as a tool for design of a geotechnical project include widespread unfamiliarity with the concept of geostatistics. This is the first main reason. This subject is not familiar in the geotechnical side, the geotechnical projects. The familiarity is widespread. Lack of a dedicated geostatistical software that can be really used in estimation of geotechnical parameters, constituting rock mass rating. This is another. For mining industry, there is a dedicated software that is ICETIS new. For oil and gas industry, there is a dedicated software developed by GeoVariance of France. That is same because ICETIS new has a two module. One is for the mining and other is for the oil and gas. But a dedicated software for this geotechnical projects has yet to come. I am requesting GeoVariance to start doing some work on this so that a dedicated software comes out which tackles the problems of estimation of geotechnical projects. Now, I will tell it is not a new thing in the world that geostatistics is utilized for geotechnical projects. It is in early 60s itself. This was utilized for, so that is what I am trying to say, success story of application of geostatistics in finalizing the alignment of English Channel Tunnel project by BRGM of France. How did they do this? I'll just explain. Success story of application of geostatistics in alignment of English Channel Tunnel project. This exercise was done by BRGM France. This is a milestone story of application of geostatistics in design of English Channel Tunnel. It enabled careful assessment of geological risk and was used to optimize the alignment of the tunnel. While selecting an optimal alignment for the tunnel, a governing criteria was to ensure that tunnel was bored only within the chalk marl. This is one lithology, avoiding the gold clay lithology. There are two lithologies in which the tunnel was made: the chalk marl and gold clay. So intention was to follow the chalk marl and avoid the gold clay because kriging, a geostatistical technique, was used to determine the boundary between chalk marl and gold clay based on available data prior to construction. Contours of standard deviation of predicted depths of this boundary were also generated. Now, what was the use of contours of standard deviation? That is, your standard deviation contour will tell you where the variance is higher, that is need much more accuracy to be improved. That contour gives you an idea which are the areas which are to be considered for increasing the prediction accuracy. Geostatistical analysis enabled engineers to improve the tunnel alignment. The standard deviation contours helped to identify the tunnel sections at which improved precision was required, which in turn enabled design of successful complementary geophysical surveys of the seafloor. Now, this study was helped by the geophysical surveys of the seafloor. As the data became available from these surveys and ongoing construction, tunnel engineers used geostatistics to repeatedly improve the spatial model of chalk marl and gold clay interface. The result was that the channel engineers were able to keep the risk of penetrating the gold clay at acceptable levels and were able to achieve their objectives of avoiding the gold clay formation. By this, the result was that the channel engineers were able to keep the risk of penetrating the gold clay at acceptable levels and were able to achieve their objectives of avoiding the gold clay formation. I may inform you, in this project of English Channel Tunnel project, half of the distance was covered by France from the French side, and half of the distance was covered from England side. And surprisingly, and hats off to the accuracy provided by geostatistics, both of them met at the same point in the middle of the tunnel. That is great. Geotechnical behavior may significantly impact in the cost and performance of projects. In hydropower and tunnels, prediction of critical geotechnical parameters is one of the most relevant requirements of such projects. It should be utilized not just during the ground investigation stage, also in data processing and interpretation stage also. Thus, geostatistical techniques provide an interesting alternative to traditional approaches. It gives a more precise estimation with minimum estimation variance by taking into account and using spatial correlation between sample values of the variables. Besides, the estimation technology provides prediction accuracy. This can be used for risk analysis and for the design of the project site. My opinion, be rest assured, this is only my opinion. My opinion is that geotechnical engineers and engineering geologists should be encouraged to explore geostatistical techniques as a possible alternative to the techniques that are in use today. It should be tried in a phased manner on an experimental basis to make a beginning. Now, why I am trying to say it should be tried in a phased manner on an experimental basis. Let us select a project, the live project, and for a certain area, we do the estimation by both the methods. What is the conventional method being used now, and by geostatistical method separately, simultaneously. And after doing the tunneling work, you compare the two different estimations done by different methods, by conventional method, and you will find which method is more accurate and which is giving you better results. Then if you find, yes, this method is more accurate and giving you better results, you proceed further. Otherwise, drop it. It will give a quantum leap in developing confidence of designing of a project. So I think this is what I wanted to say today. I think I am well in time. Hello. I think I am well in time.
Yes, sir.
But it was really a big topic. Anyway.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank you for enlightening us with your rich and vast knowledge, along with so many years of your experience in the field of geostatistics. And sir, you have tried to combine two different domains of geology and statistic in a very simple way, which I think it was a very broad and big topic, but you have tried to make it easy. And it is going to inspire many students and research scholars towards the subject of geostatistics, which I think it will be very beneficial.
And the best way is go for my book, which is basically for beginners.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think that will be a very good good beginning for all the students who want to work with statistics with geology. And sir, myself also, I am also working in the statistic. For my research work, I am preferring a statistic method. So I think it will be helpful for me also, and
Nice.
for others.
Go for a copy of my book, order at Amazon.
Yes, sir. Surely, sir, I will do that.
Okay. Hmm.
Yes, sir. And sir, now we have questions from our audience.
Yeah, I'm
Can we
I'm
start?
open. I'm open for questions.
Yes, sir. Sir, can you please stop the sharing of your screen?
Okay, I'll just close it.
Yes, sir.
Stop
And then
presenting.
stop presenting.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So, sir, first question is from Surjit Sharma. Sir, what are the applications of geostatistics other than mineral exploration and mining?
Ah, you think of any subject, GIS. There is application of geostatistics. You think of fishing. You will be surprised to know geostatistics is being applied for counting the fish, which is so variable, so fast it changes. It is being used in vegetation, the plant, trees in a jungle. They are being estimated. So geostatistics is a very vast application. Because it is only an estimation technique, and provided some certain conditions are fulfilled, it can be applied.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So, next question is that which sample method is suitable for geostatistic sample collection?
There is no suitable method for geostatistic sample collection. There is a standard procedure for sampling technique for a mineral exploration deposit. There is no relation with the geostatistical sampling procedure. Only how the samples are being collected. Once you drill the borehole, you get the borehole core. If it is a base metal deposit or a gold deposit, you divide it into two halves. The first half you crush it up to minus 100 mesh, and then cone and quarter it, and prepare 100 grams of representative sample of that length, and that is sent for analysis, and the rest half core is left for the duplicate samples if there is some problem in getting the results properly. So there is a standard procedure for all minerals for sampling. There is no relation of any geostatistical sampling. Geostatistics comes after the sampling has been done, and samples have been analyzed and assay values are obtained. So there is no relationship between the sampling and geostatistics.
Okay, sir. So, next question is what is advantages and disadvantages of geostatistics?
Uh, I can talk only about the advantages. I think I missed a slide. Advantages, first and foremost, I told it quantifies the estimation error, which no other method does. Second is, without drilling, you can optimize the drilling. At what grid your data will be sufficient for getting minimum variance. So this is a very great advantage. Then automatic contouring it does. Then there are many advantages. Disadvantage, I cannot think of any disadvantage if all the proper conditions are fulfilled for geostatistical use. So I can give a guarantee if uh, the geostatistics is properly used as described by me, it will have 95 estimation accuracy can be quantified up to 95% plus minus 5% if proper it is used properly and proper technique is used, because there are several techniques of kriging. One kriging may give you different result, other kriging may give you other result, but it is such a foolproof method of estimation, quality of estimation, if properly used.
Thank you, sir. So we have next and last question, which is about the which software to use for kriging or geostatistics.
I told I am using ICERTIS new version 6 of 2021. It is developed by ICERTIS new. ICERTIS, I can, if you want, I can write down. If you can I write down here?
Sir, you will have to share your screen if you write. I think we can search that on Google.
I'll just spell it. ISATIS. ICERTIS. ISATIS.
Thank you, sir.
Dot new.
Yes, sir. We will Google it, sir.
Developed by GeoVariance of France. GeoVariance of France.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. So now with this, I would like to conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening.
Only 3-4 questions on such a big lecture.
Sir, I think most of the students are new to this, so after seeing lecture, they might get and you might receive questions on your email also.
Yes, that is better. That is better. I would love that.
Yes, sir. So most of us are new to this, so after going through your books and your lectures one more time, I think surely there will be more questions arising.
Because my main problem is,
yes, sir.
There is popularity of this subject is very dismal in our country.
Yes, sir.
I am trying to improve this popularity by sharing my YouTube channel, videos loaded on the YouTube channel, because world over this technique is being used in mining industry almost 95%. But here I am very sorry to say, not even 5%.
Sir, this idea I think it will go, and we are happy that we are part of that event of spreading this geostatistics in India.
My main aim is just to pass on my experience and knowledge to the youngsters, who will be using it in the future. I have played my innings.
Yes, yes, sir.
So now what I want to do is just to share my knowledge and experience with the younger generation. And this is the basic idea of writing this book also.
Yes, sir. That is very generous of you, and surely it will help all of us.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes. So, with this, I conclude today's webinar. And thank you so much, sir, once again for giving such a beautiful lecture. Thank you so much.
I should thank GeoVigyan for giving me an opportunity to address. Can I know what is the number of participants attending on YouTube?
Sir, I think so, sir. I am not currently on YouTube, but afterwards we can tell you.
And what is the level of participants? once they have registered, so they
Yes, sir.
must have given the information about their level.
So the level is from UG, PG research scholars, and many of the faculties also come to see lecture.
Very good, very good.
Yes, and sir, not from only India but from other countries also.
How many countries are covered?
Sir, last time it was I think so 40, nearly 40 countries.
Because on 8th of this month, I
Yes,
gave a lecture. I gave a lecture that was organized by Mining Match Channel of Canada.
yes,
Uh, in that, 1,238 participants were registered and representing 60 countries.
oh, that's very good, sir.
Mm.
Your this idea is being circulated to whole world. That's very good, sir.
Because 60 countries in Asia Pacific. This was specifically for Asia Pacific region. So from Asia Pacific region, 1,238 participants who were registered and representing 60 countries from Asia Pacific.
That's great, sir.
So I'm thinking my effort will give the result.
Yes, sir. Surely your thinking will surely give big effort, sir.
But it has to be supported by younger generation. No other way.
Yes, sir. It will be surely when generation will come to know about this subject and they will start reading about it. Surely they will come up, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank Geovigyan for inviting me for this lecture. Uh, and I personally know Atul Kumar Pandey. He only introduced me to this. For and he asked me to join Telegram and uh, uh, create a group. I have created Geostatistics for Beginners, a group in Geovigyan, in Telegram itself.
Okay, so that's very good, sir. And we would like to thank Pandey, sir, for introducing to Geovigyan to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank, thank you
Okay.
very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks a lot.